everybody, and welcome to another interview with your three Myositis Musketeers. Once again, unfortunately, we are missing our third person, Miss Benita Moyers. She is still recovering from her myositis flare after putting all of her time and lovely energy into the moonwalk. Again, Benita, we love you. We wish you well. So for today, you're going to be joined here by myself and Jason. And we will be interviewing EMD Serono, who was a wonderful sponsor of the Voice of the Patient workshop and the Myositis Moonwalk. And so we welcome today Camille, Emma, and Angela.
Okay, so my name's Camille Ujvik. I'm the medical director at EMD Serono, supporting our neurology and immunology pipeline. And so some background about EMD Serono, it's over 300 years old as a company. So we're specifically a healthcare business of Merck KGaA Darmstadt, Germany. And so outside of North America, we're known as Merck. Within North America, we're EMD Serono, which I know can be confusing because there's another Merck within North America. We're completely different companies, historical pieces. But anyways, our company, we're in a few different areas, and we've been around for a while, so that makes sense. In our healthcare business, we focus on oncology with a lot of focus on rare oncological indications. In fact, we just acquired a company called SpringWorks that has some clinical programs in rare oncological indications, which we're really proud of. Then in the neurology and immunology space, we've had a strong legacy in multiple sclerosis. We have one of the initial platform therapies, and we've produced another therapy since then. And now what we want to do is move into sort of areas that are missing therapies in neurology and immunology. So obviously that leaves it to be broad, right? Neurology and immunology, which is how we've started getting into myositis. And so we actually have our phase 2 clinical program now is doing the interim analyses. So we'll find out what's happening once that comes out. We're hopeful. We'll see. We're also in lupus and in myasthenia gravis for pipeline. So not approved therapies. And also, we not only do we try to lengthen and improve quality of life, we create life. We have a fertility program. So we're responsible for the creation of many babies globally. And something I don't want to forget, because it is Pride Month, but we do have therapies specifically to help with HIV wasting, HIV-related wasting. So we do a lot. We have a lot going on. So that's our bit, and that's why we were so excited to go to the moonwalk, because it fits into our serving people who don't have as much to help them therapeutically. Emma, do you want to add anything?
Yeah, no, that was perfect. Thanks, Camille. And that was a great kind of segue into what I talk more. Camille's has all the facts, right, about the years that we've been around, but I kind of talk about a little bit of the softer stuff that we like to ensure that we're pulling the patient voice very early on in the drug development process, right? Where we know that the people going through this are the ones living it day to day. We can't make those decisions. We don't know. We don't have that experience. So when we're early on in this drug development process, we want to have groups such as yourselves involved in our protocol reviews and any kind of advisory committees where we're making decisions from consent forms to packaging, whether, very specific needs. So when that's our really focus is patient focused. That's what we want to be, patient directed. It's those who are going through these conditions that should drive our strategy and our decision making, and we want to ensure that we pull them in early enough. So it's really a priority of ours. We hope to continue this as Camille has mentioned, not just in neurology and immunology, but as we go into these rare disease spaces in oncology as well. So I just wanted to add that too, that we know we're not the experts, but we need organizations such as yourselves and individuals such as yourselves to partner with and collaborate in order to share where we're meeting you where you're at. So I just want to add that.
Thank you, and that's amazing. And yes, we need more places and more organizations in this rare disease space, because as you said it, there's very few. In fact, there's just the one FDA approved drug for, and that's only for dermatomyositis. And so we use off-label everything, and that's a huge fight. And so it's wonderful to have, a company such as yourselves that's mission aligns with what we are, which is patient driven, patient focused, and meeting the patient where they need to be met, instead of us conforming. You're coming to us, and that's amazing. And even through, like you're talking about, right down to the packaging, and really understanding our needs with that, because we see that a lot, with how do we open things, how do we just some simple basic things that most people don't think of really truly affect our lives. And we love, especially having that partnership and family, of others that get that, understand that, and then make it their mission to try and help us in any way they can. I want to segue into Moonwalk follow-up, workshop follow-up. Angela, you were amazing and were with us for those 2 days. So, some of these questions will be primarily focused towards you. But let's start with, how would you describe your overall experience with that Voice of the Patient workshop and the Myositis Moonwalk?
So I would say it was an outstanding experience. The workshop was so moving and wonderful, and it was educational as well. I think it was educational for patients that were there, just as far as learning how to, or gaining insights on how to advocate for themselves, insights on how to protect their health, protect themselves. That was really exciting. Also, it was an opportunity for those from industry to network with the patients and see these faces, and to, it's not just a disease. They're real people here that are really affected by these things on a daily basis. But it was also an opportunity for us in industry to network with each other also, and to gain ideas from each other about things that we're doing or the things that we can do differently. How are we best serving the needs of the audience, which is ultimately the patient. So that was really wonderful. The moonwalk also was very inspiring to see this, large gathering of people, adults and children. That was really great to see the kids out there. Everybody excited, everybody participating to the best of their ability, and just recognizing that, just because you may have mobility limitations or some other things does not mean that you can't participate in something like a walk, an awareness walk. And so that was really great. It was just a really inclusive environment. It was very, had a real family feel to it. It was really wonderful, and very moving and inspiring. Very well done, despite the weather.
Despite the weather, that's an understatement. We had all sorts of weather there. I will, one thing that I like the fact that our vendors were able to do, like you said, especially during the Voice of the Patient workshop, is actually be there with the patients. And our patients were able to go up and talk to you guys, or sit at a table with you during the event and get to know you guys better. And stuff like that. I know that as a patient myself, we all loved, and we know who our friends are, who our patients are, but getting to know the vendors is huge. It really is. My question is, how did the event content and activities align with your expectations?
So, that's a difficult question for me, because I really didn't know what to expect. So I didn't go into this event with preconceived expectations. And so I was very pleasantly surprised when I got there and the patient voices, I keep going back to that part just because it was so impactful, I felt. Just how collaborative everything was, how well thought out it was, from the topics to the organization, the roundtable panels with the having all of the speakers and participants there to interact, and the opportunity for people in the audience to spontaneously ask questions. It was very organic, and so that was really, I thought that was really great. And so that was wonderful, because you don't know what to expect. You don't know if it's just going to be didactic lectures that are going to be, strictly educational without a practical component to it. And the information that was shared was very practical. And I thought that was really great, not just for the patients and their carers, but also for those of us in industry to raise some awareness of things that we may not be aware of, and to kind of spark some thought process of, this is something that we need to think about as we're moving forward in our development phases, or, this is an aspect that we haven't considered, access to medication, opening of packages, just all kinds of different things that you don't have awareness of if you're not walking in those shoes on a daily basis. So I thought that was, I didn't necessarily have any expectations, but if I had had any, all of that would have exceeded them for sure.
Well, that's wonderful. We love to hear that part. And I'm glad that you found it so impactful, and that it exceeded any possibility of expectations. Because again, it was really important for us for it to be inclusive, for everyone to feel like they were a part of this, and to break down those barriers of sponsor and organization, but instead everybody's family, everybody's there together, everybody's here to learn, because the ultimate goal at the end of the day is always been to help the patient, to help those of us with myositis. So having been there and having done that, and this is for either of you, did you guys notice any direct or indirect impact from the sponsorship, such as increased awareness about your company, or community engagements, or new connections?
I would say yes to all that. Definitely, awareness about our company. I had several people, ask me, tell me about your company. We haven't heard of you before, because this is a new space for us. So we're not an established name. We don't currently have, a large phase 3 open label extension that everybody's heard of or anything like that. So I think that our presence did provide awareness for the community of who we are and what we're trying to do, but also awareness, as I said, for us, of needs of the patient, but also of what else is going on out there in the space as far as research and development. And it also, I think I made some great connections with Lynn, for example, and setting up plans to try to get together to talk about research opportunities that may present themselves in the future. And then also I got to talk to Manuel and practice my Spanish a little bit. So it was great. I think as far as a networking opportunity, I thought that was really good. And then of course, getting to meet the other leadership teams such as yourself and Jason there, that was a really great experience. I walked away with like a handful of business cards, which I've passed all those connections on to Camille and Emma so that they can follow up and follow through with what we started during that weekend.
No, that's
Oh,
great. I love to hear that. Because like you said, the fact that people were coming up going and would like to know more about you and your company. Because like you said, you're new when it comes to the myositis space, even though the company's been around a lot
Right.
longer than I actually thought it did. But it's amazing that for as a patient, I was diagnosed since 2016. So figuring out all this stuff is huge, and having more and more companies such as yourself um, be a part of our myositis community, for us it's huge. That just means that our voices are being heard. More and more companies and people are starting to hear about myositis and what we go through on a daily basis. I guess what suggestions do you have for us to enhance future workshops, or something similar to like the moonwalk that we just had?
I don't know, Camille, do you want to jump in? I know you've attended more events in this space than I have, and so I don't know if you have things that you'd like to share about maybe things that you've seen other places or things that you think that would be impactful. I think maybe one thing that I would suggest maybe think about is maybe consider having as part of the patient voices workshop next time is maybe have like a little role play between a patient and a healthcare provider. Like this is what a good interaction looks like, where the patient is asking questions, they're advocating for themselves, they come with their binder, they come prepared, etc., versus one where they're very shy about speaking up, or the interaction with the provider is not optimal, the patient's not being given a chance to ask questions and things like that. Some patients, if they've not had any ideal interactions, they may not be aware that the interactions that they are having are less than ideal. So that might be something to consider, kind of like a little role play workshop, so to speak.
What I
That
would
is
add,
fantastic. Sorry, I just had to say that I wrote that down and started and highlighted it. So thank you. But yes, Camille, please.
just thinking out loud, and you may have done this, but one thing that on the pharma side we get is often like a summary of what happened at a conference. So thinking out loud about how you shared that you're going to have a virtual summit. Well, so there, I'm sure there are still people who wanted to attend the event but physically couldn't, or financially, whatever reason, right? So having a summary sent out, and that's not a common practice. So that'd be something, unique you would do, that I think a lot of groups should consider doing for patient-centric meetings. And then the other thing, something TMA did that I loved was they had business cards for each a patient and caregiver attending, so they could network with one another. I don't know if you had that, but that's the best thing I've seen at a patient conference, because there's so much granularity in diagnoses in myositis, right? So maybe someone with IBM is like, I don't know how to deal with the symptom, and they'll meet someone else with IBM and they'll say, oh, we have the same, how are you managing, etc. I think that could be helpful. And then I had a third thing that I wanted to share, but I forgot it, so it can't be that important.
Well, if you think about it while we're still talking, feel free to mention it. But these are fantastic, fantastic suggestions.
Oh,
And
I did want
yeah,
to say, having looked at the program and the feedback I heard, I feel like your event goes above and beyond what some other events have done. So I just want to applaud you for that. And making it novel. Like, it's not boring. And it sounds like it won't be boring next year, because I've been to a few for different therapeutic areas and I'm just like, so keeping it engaging, novel, interactive is super smart, because you're having people who are struggling in life more than someone who isn't living with IBM, with whatever. And so something like this, it's energizing.
yeah. No, and that's some fantastic feedback, and we really appreciate that. And it's heartwarming to hear, because yes, that's the whole purpose and the point behind that is obviously awareness and education, but also connection, community, and fun. Because we have to still have joy. There still has to be fun with this disease. You still have to know that a good life is still very possible, despite a very, very tough diagnosis. So thank you for that. That's very, very impactful and important to hear, and we appreciate it. And I love the feedback and the suggestions, and believe me, I've got a notepad full of them. Yes, Angela, please.
Oh, I just had one other thought. I don't
Mhm.
know if you did this, but it's something to consider since the Patient Voices workshop is an all-day thing. Maybe some type of optional meet and greet the night before for people that are coming in. I don't know if you did that or not, but you know, like a little, I don't know, just if most people are staying like at the I was at the Huntsville, the Marriott, the Rocket, that hotel, but I happened to notice over the course of the weekend that I kept seeing several faces, but you know, having something there that people could get together, something like that might be an icebreaker kind of session. Nothing really
Yeah.
formal or fancy, but just a thought.
Yeah, no, I absolutely love. And I really truly appreciate the ideas and the concepts, um, because they only just make these events bigger and better and stronger. And again, whole part of this is collaboration, community, connection. And we want to make sure that, you know, each year it's bigger and better, and more impactful. So I love it and I appreciate it. I was going to say that my last kind of question would be, is there anything else you'd like to share about your experience? Obviously, we've talked about future initiatives and ideas, but anything else that you would like to share about that overall experience? You're muted.
Sorry. You know, the only other thing I would say is that I found it to be extremely inspiring that so many of your, well, I guess maybe all of the board of directors, but I only met a few, are also all affected by this disease or, you know, this disease process, myositis. You know, there's sometimes you have, you know, advocacy groups or support groups or things that, you know, while it's very patient centric, it may be run by people who don't share that experience. And so seeing so many of people that I met there do have this shared experience, I think makes it so much more impactful for your audience that you're serving and also very inspirational. You know, you've got, you know, people in wheelchairs, people with oxygen, people with, you know, lung transplants, whatever. And so it's inspiring for people who are participating who may not be on the board to say, man, you know, there's more than just this disease that I have. I can have an impact in other ways too.
Absolutely, and thank you for bringing home to that because yes, this entire organization of myositis support and understanding is created by and run by, you know, patients and care partners, and so and that's a unique experience. Even our executive director of our organization has dermatomyositis, so we really feel strongly about we can best serve our community because we are patients. We understand this
Because you
disease.
are the community.
Right, because that's what Jerry Williams obviously was that was the whole concept, the whole foundation of this is this is run by patients for patients. And yes, you can have this disease and volunteer and make a difference in other people's lives. And it doesn't have to be, you know, 20 hours a week. It can be an hour here, an hour there. But you can make a difference. So I appreciate you bringing that to light, and talking about that. And obviously, it was a pleasure getting to know you. I know we personally sat and had lunch the day of the moonwalk, and that was wonderful. And
Yes.
I just was so grateful for you attending, being there, being part
Thank
of our
you.
community. Um, and is there any
Thank
final
you.
thoughts, Jason or Angela, that you guys have before we sign
It
this
was
off?
it was a wonderful experience for me. Thank you so much for giving EMD the opportunity to participate. It was wonderful. I wouldn't change a thing. And Jason, you missed your calling as a comedian because you were cracking me up the entire time. You didn't know it, but you were cracking me up the whole time.
You know what?
Uh,
That's just I it's just me. It's just who I am. So, you know,
yeah.
if I wasn't me, I'd be boring.
You are
Yeah.
certainly not boring.
I do
Yes.
appreciate
Well, again, we appreciate your guys' support. Thank you for coming on, doing this interview. And we are hopeful and looking forward to the future and future collaborations, and what else, you know, happens. Fingers are crossed. So thank you so, so much.
Thank you.
Yes. Thank you all. Greatly appreciated. Have a great day.